Good morning, future third graders. All right, so we are continuing with our Greek mythology today. Our objective is I can explain why the Greek myths are considered fiction. There's your learning target. Go ahead and point your arrow at it. Draw it back. And fire. So remember yesterday we started, or 2 days ago, we started making a list of all of our Greek gods, which is what we have here. This is my list, so you should also have a list in front of you of all the gods that we've learned and different things that we've learned about them. So we are going to continue making our list today. I'm just going to review real quick. So remember yesterday we talked about Hades yesterday. We talked about Demeter and Hera. We also talked about Hephaestus, Aphrodite, Athena, and Ares. This is where we left off yesterday, was these four gods. Now remember, while I'm reading, you have two things to be thinking about. The first is examples from the text that let you know that it's fiction, as well as you are listening for information about the characteristics of the god. So those are the two things that you are listening for as I'm reading about the Greek gods today. All right, so here we have Apollo, which is this one right here. We have Artemis. We have Hermes, and we have Dionysus. Told you their names are silly. All right. Then there are two twins, Apollo, the god of light and music, and his sister Artemis, the goddess of the hunt. There's Hermes, the messenger of the gods, and finally Dionysus, the god of grapes and the youngest of all the gods. Even though these are the most powerful of all the gods and goddesses, Zeus is the strongest of all, and it is he whom we honor today. So remember, the person telling the story is Kyrus and Leonidas. So Kyrus is the father of Leonidas, so he is telling Leonidas' story as they're on their way to Mount Olympia. So we need to go back to our list because we just learned about 4 new gods. So we have Apollo, and the text said that Apollo was the god of light and music. Then we have his sister, Artemis, and she is the goddess of the hunt. Oops, spelled that wrong, of the hunt. We have Hermes. He is the messenger of the gods. And then the last picture was Dionysus. He is the god of grapes. And the text also said the youngest of the gods. All right. So he is the youngest of the gods. Even though these are the most powerful of all the gods and goddesses, Zeus is the strongest of all, and it is he whom we honor today. So remember, they're getting ready to go to Mount Olympia for what? Where are they go? Why are they going to Mount Olympia? So they're getting ready to go for a celebration. Remember, we talked about how like we celebrate for Christmas or Kwanzaa or Hanukkah. They are getting ready to celebrate their tradition, which is going to the Mount Olympia to celebrate Zeus, who is the strongest and the ruler of the gods and goddesses, as well as the other ones. I want us to stop right here, though, and I want us to think, do you think, so part of your homework was talking about what makes a god, what's the difference between gods and humans, and how are they similar to humans? But right now what I want you to stop and think about is, do you think that Leonidas thinks that Greek gods and goddesses are fictional characters? What does Leonidas think of all of these gods and goddesses? Remember, Leonidas is the sun that is traveling to Mount Olympia. So when I think about it, I'm thinking about how the Greeks believed these stories as part of their religion, right? We talked about that. So the Greeks thought that, believed all of these people were part of their religion and they had a part in their day-to-day lives. And remember, if you think back when we made our list of what a myth is, we talked about how it explains things in nature. And think about some of the gods. So some of them, like goddess of the hunt, goddess of light and music, goddess of war, goddess of the crops. Those were all things that were part of nature, which we said is what Greek mythology is also about. All right, let's go to the next slide. Cyrus stopped the cart. They had finally reached Olympia. Spectators and vendors moved all around them as the athletes stretched in preparation for the races. Spectators are observers or people there to watch the race. So the spectators are all the people sitting in the stands, essentially, getting ready to watch the competitions of the gods, the races of the gods. Leonidas knew that many miles away was cloud-covered Mount Olympia. As the midday sun shone through some of the clouds, Leonidas imagined that he could see the brightest glimpse of a palace with 12 golden thrones. So here, remember, here's his father, Cyrus. Here's Leonidas. And what is he looking at in the image? Oops, go away. Go away. So this right here he's looking at is Mount Olympia. And what did the text just say that he is imagining up there? Yep, it says that he was imagining a palace with 12 golden thrones. Do you think that he really saw that? Let's go back and read the text. It says, as the midday sun shone through some of the clouds, Leonidas imagined he could see the brightest glimpse of a palace with 12 golden thrones. So let's stop and think about that for a second. Let's think about what the author just said. So my question was, do you think that Leonidas looked at Mount Olympia and really saw the 12 thrones in a palace? If you do, or if you don't, you need to be able to give me an example from the text for why you think that. What did the text say? So when I go back and I look and I read it, the midday sun shone through the sum of the clouds. Leonidas imagined he could see. So right there, the author is telling me that he didn't really see it, right? He imagined in his mind as he was looking up there, he imagined in his mind that he saw this huge palace and 12 thrones. But if you imagine something, does that mean that it's really there? Nope, it sure doesn't. All right. So you heard that Greek myths are fiction or stories that are not true. How do you know they are fiction? How do we know that Greek myths are fiction? That's my first question. How do we know that Greek myths are fiction? And remember, that ties back to our learning objective for today, being able to give examples. Then my other question for you today is, just forgot my question. My other question for you today is, which of the gods do you think is the most powerful, and how do you know? Which of the gods do you think is the most powerful, and how do you know? So your first question again is, we've talked about how they're fiction or how they're stories that aren't true. How do you know that they're fiction? And then which of the gods is most powerful? Okay, So those are your 2 assignments. I also want you to get on reading A to Z today. See if you can find something that has to do with mythology or the Greeks. And if you do, send a picture to me. All right, you guys, I love you, and I will see you tomorrow.